Hello, I'm Martin Howe, CEO and founder of Teq4, and I'm here with Paul Bailey, Principal Technical Director at Walt Disney Imagineering, and one of the key people on the absolutely outstanding and mind-blowing Star Wars Galaxy's Edge attraction. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Martin. How are you?
I'm great. Looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Thank you and Charlie so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here at the Blue Loop Bee Expo today. And it's a super honor to represent all of the women and men who worked so tirelessly to bring Rise of the Resistance to fruition.
It was quite a project, wasn't it? We're here to talk about just how do you go about designing and building difficult, sometimes seemingly impossible things, particularly this project. I wanted to set the scene perhaps for the viewers. So I remember very well, Paul, it was about 5 years ago, that phone call. We were already working on aspects of the project, not knowing anything about the project. In fact, we didn't really even know there was a project. We were just helping out with some design challenges that you threw at us. And then you called and I picked up the phone and said, hey, Martin, you've got the job. Job? What job? I said, come over and see us and I'll talk you through it. So I did. I arrived at that huge office that you'd set up and you opened the door and there were TIE fighters and droids and it's like, oh, Star Wars, wow. And then you took the, most of the day taking us through what the plan was, the guest journey on this whole experience. And I just thought you were crazy. As the story unfolded, I just thought this is ridiculous. How on earth are you going to build this thing? So, so what was when you first got introduced to the project, what was your first reaction?
I think it was much the same. I remember sitting at lunch with you and seeing, the look of shock on your face. You could hardly eat, and I think, I must have been in the same place, 100%. The scale of what they were endeavoring to do was just mind-blowingly massive. It was way beyond anything I had ever seen or hoped to experience before.
So there are two main attractions at Galaxy's Edge: Smuggler's Run, which features the Millennium Falcon, which Asa Kalama has already given us a great insight into, and then Rise of the Resistance, arguably an even more complex experience to deliver. So take us through that guest journey on that one, Paul.
Let's see. So you're on the planet Batuu. You have an opportunity to go join the Resistance. So you find your way out to the outskirts of town, to the Resistance base. It's kind of a local installation, a temporary installation. You get inducted into the Resistance and receive a message from Rey, which is your mission. You board a transport ship and you're going to head off to the real Resistance base where all of the main Resistance members are. So you blast off into space, and just as you get outside of the atmosphere, you are captured by the First Order, pulled into a Star Destroyer. You disembark from the ship that you left Batuu on. You step onto the hangar bay of a Star Destroyer with a garrison of stormtroopers looking you down, and then you're taken off and put into detention. However, all hope isn't lost. There's some friendlies, some Resistance fighters that have infiltrated the First Order, and they break you out and they put you on these little transport ships, and you ride kind of seemingly with a direction, but maybe a confused direction led by your droid to a escape pod. And the idea is that you are going to leave the Star Destroyer and fly back down to the planet. So you board one of these, you drive in to the escape pod, and you blast your way back down to the planet just in the nick of time before the Star Destroyer itself is destroyed.
I recognize that escape pod. That's a huge journey to deliver. I mean, that's a long guest experience, and it's contiguous, it's seamless. You go from one to the other. You don't stop and get off and wait for the next thing to come along. You just, from start to finish, it's relentless. Like I say, when you first told me what you're going to deliver, I thought you were crazy. So just give us a sense of the main challenges in pulling this off.
Well, the machines are massive, obviously, and there's an awful lot of systems that kind of have to hand off between guest area and guest area. And you can, without going into the details of the ride system, you can probably start to imagine all of the technical challenges with that. These ride vehicles are trackless, and there is a continuous music score throughout the entire experience, John Williams' score. And then on top of that, there's onboard audio and offboard audio, and all of those components come together to make something that is technically extremely challenging, especially given variations in timing and whatnot. And then add on top of that, we built this in 2 places more or less simultaneously, with 2 crews, but a core group of people at one point in the project that were traveling back and forth coast to coast. We also ran 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. So you can imagine the scheduling that needed to occur to plan out who was going to be on what coast doing what at what time of day with what kind of turnaround of sleep from their flight. And that problem alone becomes something that took an army of people to get their heads around. So the volume of manufacturing, the number of elements, both in Rise and in the land proper, the technical challenges were just astoundingly huge, doing it at scale.
Yeah, and I mean, I understood quite well, I guess, the technical challenges, but I mean, you've just explained all the other operational and human challenges to go alongside that. That's what a project.
The charge from Bob Iger at the time was, have Star Wars be the most ambitious thing that Disney's ever done, and I would argue that Rise is really the most ambitious part of the most ambitious thing, just based on the scale and the number of components that had to come together to make it occur.
What was interesting for us, again, it was our first major Parkside project we worked with you guys on, and because we came on board early on the project, we each time we visited, each time we got into detailed conversations with you, something had changed, not in the design or the concept, that you really did deliver what you sketched out at the beginning, but the organization, the team just kept growing and evolving, and more people with special skills in special areas. Every time we were working on something, there was more people come along to join, that adding pieces and technical elements and creative elements to it all along. So how do you manage that change of more people coming on board, the organization changing? You even moved office, I think, at one stage.
Oh yeah, I think that the biggest piece of doing something large like this is, in any leadership or management role, is you spend a significant chunk of your time being an educator, and constantly kind of reapplying the goals of the overall. And I think in doing that and kind of setting up the design filters for everybody, you give them the ownership of the item and allow them to kind of take it and internalize it and make it part of their personal set of goals and flourish along the way. And I think that's really the key to doing something massive like this, is you have to lead an army through the hearts. So I think that's probably the thing that carried us.
Helps to have such a cool project and a great brand to work on, to get people really engaged, doesn't it? The other aspect that comes to mind is, and came to mind often through the project, is we in our organization, we talk about designing and building for certainty. We have a number of processes that we use to manage that. It helps keep us sane that we can we have processes for being confident we can build what we are conceiving at the beginning. But on a project of this size, the complexity and the uncertainty must be huge at the beginning. How do you go about getting that certainty on a project this big?
I think first and foremost is everybody has to recognize that there is risk. You can't mitigate 100% of the risk.
Right.
And you can't sell the risk to your vendors whole cloth. There's no way that I could take the entire projection system for one of the attractions and give it to you, Martin, and say, okay, you are now 100% responsible for that. Because at the end of the day, we're paying the bill. So I think it's about partnership. It's about bringing the vendors and partners in early and having them sit aside you, as opposed to there being this arm's distance relationship. And that we did that, from the very outset, working on Smuggler's Run before you even knew that it was Smuggler's Run. So I think that's a big chunk of it. I think the other piece is you can't endeavor to invent everything. You have to pick and choose the moments and the elements. And some things you find a way to use an off-the-shelf part and modify it, or an off-the-shelf piece of software and modify it. Or sometimes you take 2 or 3 modified things and you stick them together to make a new thing, as opposed to wiping the slate clean and starting completely from scratch. And we kind of had a mantra, at least on my team, and it was just for those who enjoy sports ball, just get 10 yards. Just give me 10 yards every single day. Just give me a 10-yard down. That's all I need. I don't need touchdowns. I don't need anything crazy. Just 10 yards at a time. Get the stuff behind you that you possibly can. Carve away at the scope. Come up with a plan. So that's the second thing. And I think the third thing is there's got to be an agreement to spend early, and not try to push everything to the very tail end of the project.
Yeah, we definitely felt very early on that we were part of a team and not a vendor. And a little bit to our surprise, actually, at some point, it's like we were, yes, we were part of a team. We also were given a reasonable amount of autonomy and trust, I felt, in terms of us really driving some of the decision making about where things should go, at least putting forward our thoughts and strong recommendations, and they were taken very much on board. And it really did feel like part of a team in that process. And then through that, we were introduced to other people in the team. Panasonic, as an example, you guys chose them as a strategic partner, I guess, on the project. And then we were kind of wedded with them, go away and solve a few problems, talk amongst you, solve the problems together. And we worked very deeply with their product management, product development teams, developing new components as a result of that process. And it really was at that stage we realized the scale and complexity, but also just how core part of the process all your vendor partners were as part of the greater team. So that was enjoyable, sometimes not scary perhaps, but certainly enjoyable and invigorating, that's a good word, experience for us.
Well, it wasn't just on the vendor side of things. It was also on the construction side of things. That whole team was brought in extremely early. Nothing is perfect, right? There were wins and misses in every one of those sets of relationships. But I would say, by and large, overall, the idea of extending trust and leading, from that position, really benefited us, and it certainly allowed us to clear an awful lot of ground very quickly.
There was a lot to do, and there was definitely a pace all the way through. And some of these items are kind of long lead time items. Some of them haven't ever even been invented or certainly made yet.
Yeah. There was a number of situations where the strategy was to buy late because we knew that the thing didn't exist yet, and we were taking a calculated risk that it would. Projectors being one of those items. I don't think that we would have been able to deliver the level of projection that we had if we didn't, sit down with Panasonic and have an agreement about looking into their product pipeline, and plan that way on the early side. So some of it, it was pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, and again, when we talk about projectors, it wasn't 5 or 10, it was hundreds and hundreds, and not small ones, all big ones. So it is a whole lot of hardware that wasn't available at the time we were needing to kind of work on it. It was down the line. So that process of working at quite a deep, complex engineering level across your teams, my teams, other suppliers' teams, was we'd done it before, but not on this scale and not to this complexity and not with real risk. I mean, really were big risks, but taking those, as you say, 10 yards at a time, and validating the things that needed validating at the right time was good to be part of, because made a huge difference. So let's talk a bit about the budget. Not how much it was, but really how, on such a large project, how do you manage the budget on having all these complexities and uncertainties at the beginning? How do you make sure that it's going to run to budget or near enough to budget to be successful?
It was a big challenge, and of course, I can't talk in specifics of numbers, but what I can say is it wasn't lavish by any stretch. It was a big number, but it wasn't lavish. We knew, based on the size of the thing we were endeavoring to build, that we needed to maximize every dollar possible and put as much investment in front of the guests as we possibly could. So it was really about squeezing every ounce of value that we possibly could out of everything that we were buying, and it really kind of pushed us into entertaining methods and relationships that I think otherwise we may not have done. I think it leaned up the way that the decisions were made overall. It hastened a lot of decisions because as any decision or piece of information became stale, it would tend to cost more and more money. We strategically bought some things early and some things late due to it, and I think that helped us to kind of self-organize and keep budget on track.
Yeah, we certainly got the sense, to my initial surprise actually, that it wasn't a lavish budget and you were really watching every dollar. We'd come up with a design or a solution and the answer was great, yeah, that meets spec, that does what we want, but no, it's too expensive, or it's using too many things, or it has an implication elsewhere. So, it took us a little while, but we soon delved into the fact that, like any project, the dollars really matter. The other aspect that we were pleased, and it's kind of a reflection of the point you made earlier about how you engaged in a kind of a partnership venture with everybody involved in the project, was we were scratching our heads saying, what's the process for installing this many projectors systematically, reliably, really precisely? We're measuring in microns at some part of the process. So we had our own ideas and methods for doing that, and you with some challenges, pushback in some areas, but you adopted them pretty much, and said, yeah, we think that works. We've not done that way before, but yeah, we should do that. And so it was thank you very much for putting your trusting us, but it was kind of a symptomatic of, I think, how you approached the whole project. I mean, we were just a small piece of a huge puzzle.
I think we recognized fairly early on that it was going to take a village, to, no pun intended, to get the whole project done. And I think one of the most positive things that came out of it was, aside from the vendor partnerships that we had, the partnership with the stakeholders at the resort was, I think, one of the most amazing pieces of it. I think the relationship got a lot closer in some cases there, and And it was phenomenal to finally be having conversations about total cost of ownership when we were making purchasing decisions on, or early on things like projectors. So looking at end-to-end costs, not just CapEx versus OpEx, was pretty amazing. And I think that really came from our leadership, who set that culture of trust and collaboration in place.
Mm. Yes. So there's, I think it's that mix of so competently and so successfully managing that whole process alongside risks and some real constraints. On that journey, there must have been times, did anything keep you awake at night, or are you just too cool for that, Paul?
Thank you for intoning that I might be too cool for anything. I don't think anybody's ever said that to me. Certainly your stuff kept me awake at night.
Me too, sometimes, actually.
I am just kidding. For anybody watching this, I am just kidding. No, honestly, the technical side of things rarely woke me up in the middle of the night. We had such a tremendously talented group of people, and I knew that was just a matter of eating the elephant one bite at a time. We had the talent, we had the people applied in the right way at the right time. Honestly, I knew that was going to be resolved. Even in the moments where, there was a problem that was persisting for days and days and days, well, everybody would kind of turn focus, and that would be that. But I think the thing that most kept me up at night was the changes to the schedule and the effect on the humans. We ran a very tight team. You can imagine the toll that a big project like this takes on families, and sometimes the schedule was orthogonal to the needs of the families. So there was an awful lot of sacrifice, and I think that was the thing that kept me up more than anything. And I would say that that's probably the same for every large project.
Yeah, it can have that effect, can't it? Coming back to kind of scale again, it always makes me smile to myself when I hear designers on a project go to site and say, "Oh, wow, it looks a lot bigger now it's built." Did you ever get that feeling on this project? Was there a moment you thought, now it's come together, this is huge? Or did you always get a sense in your mind's eye of just the scale of what you were doing?
I think seeing the steel for the AT-ATs go up was just astounding. Standing at the foot of one of those things and looking up, steel always looks bigger in real life. But there was something about just that particular object was just mind-blowing. That, and watching some of the truly gigantic ride steel come in. I still have no idea how that stuff got to site. It was bigger than anything I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I had the similar moment, standing at the foot of that area and looking up. Wow, and I had to check the drawings again and say, did we get our dimensions right? Are we in meters or feet here? It's absolutely huge.
You check notes, and you look up and you check your notes.
Yep, that's where it's got to go. So, wow. So yeah, there is that realization often that it really is human scale. It's a very, very big place. I think I've said it before, but I just want to kind of make the point again. It was a real privilege for me to see the project come to life and to be entrusted so much with such critical elements of the end result. So you had to rely on many external partners to deliver. How did you manage that?
I think the big trick in managing something like this is the extension of trust and the extension of a true human understanding of the needs of the other partner. We had a goal on my team, which was lead with empathy, and we tried to, wherever possible, consider what is going on situationally with the other person, understand things from the perspective of assuming best intents. You can imagine that with an army this big, if we had a round of kennel cough, it could rip things apart faster than you know what. And I worked very hard. A lot of the team worked very hard. Many of the managers and leaders to assure that would not be the case and would not be the outcome. And that truly extended both to the internal staff and the partners themselves. It was a tough project. Any project of this magnitude is going to be tough. And you can't forget that it's the people there that are doing the work that truly are the magic behind making it happen. So I think investing in the people, being compassionate, showing empathy, and most importantly, extending trust, that's the magic sauce behind pulling something big like this off.
I got a really, really strong sense of that throughout, and it didn't die away, even in times when tough days, tough weeks. That didn't die away. It was great to be part of that team and that culture. Thank you for that. It made a big difference, actually.
Thanks for playing in the sandbox with us.
It was a lot of fun. So was there a part of the project that you thought would be difficult but turned out to be a lot easier in hindsight, and vice versa?
Yeah, there's always those things where there's like internal press within an organization of, oh, that was tough last time, so that's going to be hard now, or ooh, that's always a nightmare. You hear those things, and by and large, some of the mechanical stuff, some of the animation stuff that was touted to be really, ooh, that's a difficult thing. Sure, there was risk, and sure, it was invention, but at the end of the day, the team pulled it off swiftly and professionally, and there was not the outcome that many were fearful of. On the other side, some things that you kind of take for granted within our industry and are simpler mechanically, it really came out of nowhere as an issue that we all had to kind of come together and figure out a way to work around. So it varied. I wouldn't say that it was as predictable as we would have liked, regardless of our early stage risk analyses on the project. There were still a bunch of things that came out of the woodwork, and some things that we had flagged that just weren't issues whatsoever. And of course, I can't go into specifics on any of these, but I'll acknowledge that there were.
Bound to be, right? You're building something that's never ever been done before, and like I said at the top, I think you were crazy even taking it on. So the fact that you guys managed to pull it off so successfully is amazing testament to everybody on the project and the leadership. So how do you feel now, Paul? Now it's done.
I have to tell you, going directly from opening Rise here in California after having come back from opening with the team in Florida, and then more or less immediately into quarantine because of COVID, has been a really wacky experience. It's a little melancholy in that there isn't the contingent here in California of people enjoying it and tweeting about it on a daily basis. On the other hand, after 5+ years of a really baptism by fire, the idea of relaxing and making some sourdough it kind of turned out okay. So I'm through with my extended vacation at this point from the project.
Back at the coalface, I'm sure soon. Thank you, because we were invited to the crew day just prior to opening, and we were there with a whole bunch of industry professionals, experts that I look up to, of course. And the last thing I'd seen was test patterns on these screens. So I was nervous, actually. I just thought, I hope it looks great. And Paul hasn't mentioned, so I'm sure it must be all right. But I hadn't seen the final content on the screens or the whole experience. And I was nervous up until I was at the gunnery scene. And that's overall, that's been done so well. That the depth, the realism brought about by all the details that you guys have put into and pulling that together, it was absolutely stunning. That was the moment I thought, wow, this is going to be a good ride, and we're already halfway through. But more importantly, I think the people I were with, people who really do know what good looks like and what bad looks like, were blown away more than I. And really, wow, that's amazing. How did you guys make this happen? It is and trying to picking. So how does that work? What was this? I can't say anything, but that's absolutely stunning experience and a real major highlight for me in my career. Thank you. And the reaction of people we all look up to, equally blown away, was a special moment for me. So must have been. So a special moment for me must be 100 times that for you. I mean, how do you? You must still be riding high on that moment when it opened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, watching the faces of the people come off it is astounding. One of the things that was so striking about this whole project, from really the beginning to the end, is how secretive and compartmentalized the information was, and often that kind of flew a little bit in conflict of our want to give ownership and extend trust to people. So it's not surprising that you hadn't seen a lot of the finished media until the very end, because that was something that that the team was reserving. They knew that it was going to be outright fantastic. They didn't want to give that away to anybody but a small few.
Yeah,
I think the one of the most amazing moments for me was having Rick Rothschild on the ride. I worked with him years previous and really learned a tremendous amount from Rick, and it was a pretty emotional moment to see him come off that ride. So many years later, I was just deeply proud to show him this thing that we had all put together, really very much in his image, I think. So that was a moment for me. But yeah, it's incredible. I saw women and men weep coming off of it in Florida when it first opened. It's super impactful. Most people just come off jaw agape. We'd figured that there was cheering at the exit, and really more often there was just dead silence. People were still trying to process what was going on. Yeah. I think that was when the team really knew, yeah, we got him. John Lorena really envisioned and fought for something astounding and game-changing in our industry. And all of the people who he surrounded himself with, all the professionals in all of the different disciplines that brought it to life. I think it was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it takes me back to that initial thought when you took me through the guest journey. I thought, if you can pull this off, what an immersive experience. Being abducted, chased around by stormtroopers, escaping, flying back to the planet, that people are going to be so bamboozled that they're going to feel that actually happened. And I think that is exactly what you've delivered. And that's why people aren't whooping and hollering. They're still going, did I escape? Was I on a spaceship? What did that actually happen? It is. I think you really did pull it off. And yeah, I didn't. You didn't tell me the thing about Rick before, and I've worked with Rick a few times, and he's a very, very picky man, very, very picky man. And he's very, very good, and he's very, very thorough. And to get his adulations for this is that's a big, big tick in the box.
It was something else. His reaction was he just gave me a hug, and that said everything we needed to hear.
Yeah, that says a lot. Well, look, Paul, That's probably all we got time for. Thank you so much for your amazing insights. Congratulations for successfully building what I thought was actually impossible.
Well, congratulations to you. And it's, you know, I personally think I was one of the minor parts of this. You know, I just bought a lot of things. It's really congratulations to the whole team, you know, to first and foremost, John, and then following him, all of the other talents and professionals that that brought this to life.
Yeah, you did a whole lot more than buying some bits, Paul. And I think it's that, as you touched on, and I lived the approach and the culture of the project was what I think has made you able to deliver that crazy aspiration. So again, congratulations, well done. I'd like to take a quick thank you for Blue Loop for the opportunity to bring us together, and thanks again, Paul. An amazing journey, for placing your faith in us and everyone else likewise.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Hope to see you again soon.
Likewise.
Bye now.